Cincinnati is great.
People here are very friendly. I am from the Pacific Northwest, and so I was not used to people just saying good morning to you.
I'm from Colorado, and I unabashedly loved Cincinnati and was surprised by that because, when you're in Denver, people are like, I don't know, Cincinnati.
I'm originally from New Jersey, so coming to Cincinnati was a huge change for me. New York is too big of a place, and Cincinnati's like the right size.
Came from a pretty small city in upstate New York, so this is definitely a big change for us.
I came from West Virginia. The biggest area I'd lived in before this was like 40,000 people. So I was really, really worried. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a big city, like I'm gonna be so overwhelmed. It's not like that at all.
I am from Texas originally, born and raised. I grew up in Austin. I've loved living in Cincinnati. It's been a great place. It's nice having 4 seasons.
We moved from California around Los Angeles area, so we didn't really know what to expect. But it's been amazing because the city's so big that it has everything you could possibly need.
Well, I really like my life in Cincinnati. I'm from Philadelphia. Even though it's in the Midwest, it's not just like cornfields and things like that. There's a lot of stuff to do.
I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and we didn't have all of the professional sports, which I'm very much excited about having access to.
Having lived in Cleveland before, New York, I've been all over Florida, been across the world. Living here, I loved it way more than I ever expected to.
I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. If you had told me then that I would be a resident physician in Ohio, I would have told you lost your mind.
I'm from Cincinnati, so I love the city. I've chosen to be here for a long time. I did go away for college, but I came back. I think that's pretty common among Cincinnatians, is to boomerang back home.
I've been living here for about 26 years now, and I never really intended on staying, but it really is just a great place to live.
I didn't know anything about Cincinnati before I interviewed here, and I think I was just so surprised with what it had to offer as a city.
So I drove up here, and I'd never actually really driven and been in Cincinnati before, and I drove in on a beautiful day, and I was kind of caught off guard by how pretty the city was actually.
Always lived in the Midwest, but I'd never been to Cincinnati before I interviewed here, and immediately this is not what I thought Ohio was like, to be honest. I was expecting more of your typical Midwestern city, but it's really not. It kind of has a mixture of everything. You have your really large city feel and vibe, but it's also really hilly and beautiful.
I've lived in multiple cities around the Midwest, and Cincinnati is by far the most beautiful.
The skyline is beautiful. Looking at the Ohio River and everything like that, it's really amazing.
Cincinnati's awesome. So I live right downtown, not far from the Bengals Stadium, down by the banks. I got a really nice apartment looking over the stadium, so I kind of get to watch all the football games and all the concerts that go on down there. There's always something going on downtown, which is awesome, and it's only maybe like 10 minutes from the hospital, which is really nice in the mornings as well.
It's a perfect in-between size city, so I feel like I always say it's got the perks of the bigger city without the chaos of the big city. So traffic is better, it's more affordable, people are super nice, it's easy to get around.
Cincinnati has a lot of great places to live, close to the hospital. You can live within 10 minutes of the hospital and live in a variety of neighborhoods. I live in Walnut Hills, it's an easy drive.
I think I live in a really cool neighborhood. I live in Walnut Hills, which is about 5 minutes from the hospital. There's a wine bar, there's a bubble tea place, there's pizza, there's Mexican food. Every couple of weeks they do a free comedy show in one of the parks in my neighborhood.
I live in this cool neighborhood called East Walnut Hills, which is like a 5-minute drive from the hospital, so it's super convenient. But it's a very hip area with all these coffee shops and restaurants and things like that. So I feel like on all my off days I get to explore something new and go to a new spot.
I live in OTR, which is over the Rhine, and it's a really cool urban hipster sort of kind of area.
Lots of awesome neighborhoods to live in. There's a really great sense of community in those neighborhoods like North Side or Clifton.
I live probably 5 minutes from the hospital in a really beautiful neighborhood called Clifton. It's sort of north of where the university is. It's adjacent to a big park that has a beautiful walking trail.
One of my favorite things about the city, the first thing that I kind of realized is how diverse it is. So my wife and I, we moved to a
a park called Evanston, which is like predominantly African American neighborhood. And coming from Lexington, Kentucky, like it was a big change for us, which was really great.
I live in Columbia, Tusculum with my fiance. That's kind of close down by the river actually, so we go walking a lot.
I love the northern Kentucky side because I'm from northern Kentucky too, so like Newport and Covington, there's a ton of stuff to do over there as well.
I actually don't live in Cincinnati. I live across the border in Kentucky. I live in Dayton, Kentucky, which is right beside Bellevue. And at first I was nervous because everyone talks about bridge traffic. I have never encountered bridge traffic over the Newport Bridge. Everything is really accessible here. I feel like I'm literally 12 minutes away from everywhere.
I actually live over in northern Kentucky instead of Cincinnati proper. And there are a lot of things to do both here and there. I really like hiking, I like caving. There are some beautiful places to go down in Kentucky for caving specifically.
We live about 12 minutes from the hospital up 71.
My family and I chose to buy a house and live in the suburbs, which has been great for our kids. We have a yard, we have a lovely home.
You know, being able to sort of pick where in the city I wanted to live, whether it was true suburbia, folded into a college town like what we have with Xavier down here with UC, more of a downtown vibe. I think there's a lot of places that you can choose to live down here and still live within a 15-minute drive of the hospital.
What Cincinnati is to me is I can have a downtown event or a city event, and then I can also get out into the country and we can go hiking or camping for the day.
The city has a lot more to offer than just the buildings and businesses that it has in it. We're just a stone's throw away from one of the most awesome national parks. We go to the park every day with our dog. It's a really dog-friendly city.
My favorite thing to do here on my days off, I take my dog and we go to Mount Adams and we walk up the big hill. And at the top of the hill, like it overlooks the river. And it's so beautiful and the hill is really steep and sweaty and it's a good workout without really being a workout.
You're never too far away from a park here in Cincinnati. I live very close to Eden Park, which has like a beautiful overlook of the water.
There are a lot of local parks. I have a dog now, and we just love going to different parks.
Our favorite thing to do is take our dog down to Smale River Park and just go sit out by like the Moorline Lager House and grab a beer or just enjoy the nice river and nice weather that Cincinnati has to offer.
There's like 100 parks in the city, and there's always something fun and cool to do, but I think the part of my life in Cincinnati that I like the most is just walking around and taking a look at the architecture of the city. There's so much about it that's really beautiful and nuanced that you wouldn't catch unless you take time to slow down and walk through.
There's a museum. There's the Aronoff Art Center. There's the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, which you can learn a lot about and learn a lot from.
We have a thriving arts scene here in Cincinnati, including an internationally recognized symphony orchestra that plays an acoustically perfect music hall. You can also catch the opera and the ballet in the May Festival. We have a highly awarded regional theater that shows plays both new and old. And you can catch a downtown Broadway play. We also have a great music scene with venues all over town and festivals all year long.
One of the things that I looked at were like all of the artists who actually came to Cincinnati. I was actually very surprised at some of the artists that came to what I thought was little old Cincinnati, but it's actually big old Cincinnati.
Lots of concerts come through town. The NoahCon concert was just a few weeks ago, and then obviously Taylor Swift was here, which was a huge weekend for the whole city, and it was a really fun concert to get to go to.
A music festival that happened this past weekend, we had Flo Rida, Ludacris, Ashanti, Snoop Dogg.
We kind of have a little bit of everything. We have arts, music, beer, lots of really good food.
One of the things I really like about Cincinnati would be the food.
It's a really great place to eat, and there are always new restaurants popping up.
A lot of good food. If you're a foodie, top shelf stuff here. Even outside the city too. It's
incredible food. There's a great food scene here. I can't say enough about it. So if you're a foodie, this place is for you.
There's a big amount of gastronomic experiences here, regardless of which culture it is.
we have it all.
I'm a huge foodie, so I love exploring like different restaurants and cuisines, and like the residents here came out with this guide, so I've been like going through those recommendations as well as Dr. Worm's.
It has different cuisines, Ethiopian, Indian, Nepali, Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, I mean, you name it.
The food scene here also top notch. Like there's Ethiopian options, Thai options, German options, Ghanaian options. I just did not expect us to have such a wide variety in terms of cultural cuisine.
The restaurants are awesome. I kind of thought they wouldn't be so good coming from Philly, but they're actually awesome. Like OTR restaurants are awesome.
The food scene is amazing. We have a lot of brunch here, a lot of good brunch spots. Also a lot of good restaurants like across the river in Covington. I recently discovered Covington, and they have a lot of yummy Italian restaurants, good walkable places over there.
Abigail Street is a Mediterranean tapas place that has falafel that is so good that my friend who grew up in Israel said it was some of the best he'd ever had.
All these awesome restaurants, bars, like everything, there's always something new popping up. There's always something within walking distance.
Cincinnati has a lot of great places to eat. The food selection is amazing.
The food scene in Cincinnati is incredible.
If you go out to eat in Cincinnati and you go to a chain restaurant, you failed. There's so many great local restaurants. There's really no reason to go to a chain restaurant in Cincinnati.
I enjoy our brewery scene, about as good as it's going to get anywhere across the country.
A lot of breweries in the area, if you're into that kind of thing. There's this little cool little area called OTR, which is just north of the main downtown city. And it's this up and coming area that was historically like a meatpacking district and a brewery district, and they're starting to bring all that back.
You have a combination of kind of Midwest and South, so there's distilleries right across the river in Kentucky. There's lots of breweries, like craft breweries.
My favorite brewery is Taft's Ale House. Old church turned brewery, lovely vibe, German fare, best place for me.
There's a place called The Humble Monk, and they make their own seltzers. They are so good, and there's a pizza place that's really close, and they'll deliver to The Humble Monk.
My personal favorite is Humble Monk up in Northside, where the owners know who you are and they tailor their beer to you.
I feel like Cincinnati is a very easy place to live. You have like everything you could ever want here. I'm really into running, so things like running clubs, that sort of thing.
I run a lot, and Cincy has a ton of parks, so that's what I spend a lot of my free time doing is running.
It's kind of weird. You're like in the city, but there'll be like a lot of good running paths and things along those lines that are like safe and like away from traffic, which is awesome.
We have the 10th largest marathon in the United States called the Flying Pig Marathon. It's a challenging hilly course, but people have a lot of fun with it.
I love to run, and that's probably where I really enjoy the city the most. So every Saturday morning I'm running in different parts of the city. It's great how I can be downtown running and seeing people there, or on the other side of the river and running through a wooded area that's just beautiful.
The new activity we've really gotten into is pickleballing. That's a big sport that's especially popular here at this residency, but it's also been extremely, like a lot of Cincinnatians are really into pickleball.
And most importantly is pickleball. There's a ton of pickleball courts, and we have a pickleball group meet going now. We have like 60 or 70 people from a bunch of different residencies, spouses, people's friends, so on and so forth, and we try to play like once or twice a week, which has been awesome.
I play a lot of pickleball, so it's one of the ways that I try to make friends, but also try to stay fit. So I play a lot at Sawyer Point, which is like downtown, right by the river, like very close to like the stadiums.
Cincinnati's a great place to live. There is lots to do outside, so many parks. They're beautiful. And you're only like 2 hours from Red River Gorge, so I climb, and that's great to be that close.
When I'm not in the hospital, I'm probably outside somewhere, whether that's on one of the many hiking trails around the city, whether that's renting a kayak from the local kayak shop and kayaking down the Little Miami, or even out to the Ohio River. I also just bought a road bike, so I've been biking more around Lunken Airport, finding different bike paths, so that's been a lot of fun.
I also enjoy the hills of the city. There's some good mountain biking in Mount Airy, and I love going out there.
I live in Oakley. My husband and I bought a house here when I matched here, and we live right next to Wasson Way, which is this trail that they're building around Cincinnati. And it's basically connecting, I think it's up to 30 miles of the city around.
We have an amazing Rails to Trails program here with trails all over Cincinnati, hundreds of miles, all connecting up. In fact, there's one called the Erie to Ohio Trail where you can ride all the way to Cleveland.
Cincinnati, I think, is the perfect Midwest city because it's not as big as Chicago, but it's certainly a large Midwest city, and the Reds and Bengals having professional sports teams and going to sports events.
It's a great sports town. People are really passionate, and going to the stadiums is a lot of fun. I'm a fan of FC Cincinnati. They kind of came into their own while I was here, so I've adopted that team, and the new stadium is beautiful.
I love going to the FC Cincinnati games. I'm a big soccer fan, so it's nice having an MLS team that I can actually support.
I really love football, so having an NFL team here is really fun.
We love going to Reds games, cheering on our own team. She's a San Francisco Giants fan, I'm a Philadelphia Phillies fan, but we still like going, and just, the tickets are really cheap, so it's a really nice thing to do as a little date night.
I love the Reds. I grew up watching the Reds. That was my great-grandfather's favorite baseball team.
Sports teams, not only professional, but recently I've been doing more of the University of Cincinnati games too, so it's a lot of fun to do all the college sports as well.
In addition to baseball, football, soccer, and even hockey, in the summer we host the Western and Southern Open, which is the oldest continuous tennis tournament played in the same city in the United States since 1899. It's one of the top tours for both the men and women's tour in the world. And in the wintertime we have skiing about 30 minutes outside of Cincinnati. It's not destination skiing, you wouldn't drive here to go experience it, but it's very close, the season passes are cheap, and you can practice your skiing there every weekend for 3.5 months. And then you're ready when you get to go out for a bigger trip. We always go to Snowshoe, which is about half day's drive to the east in West Virginia.
Things that I love to do when I'm here, I love going to Smale Riverfront Park. I love swinging on those swings with the little pig in the background, looking at the river.
You can do a riverboat tour or do a night on the river if you'd like. There's a casino if you really want to try your luck. Also within driving distance, you have the Red River Gorge down in Kentucky. Bourbon Trail is there.
The other thing I like about being here, you're so close to other cities. You can drive to Chicago, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Nashville.
You're pretty central. So if you're only a couple hours flight away from skiing, you're a couple hours away from New York, you're a couple hours away from Miami. So it's a very, very central place.
It's also really affordable. On a resident salary, the cost of living is great. You still have plenty of money to save. I started a retirement account. I can, afford to do fun things on my off days.
People should consider moving to Cincinnati because the cost of living is so much better than a lot of the other states in the country. On our salary, people have bought houses, they can live in 2-bedroom apartments in all over the city, not just in one specific area.
So I came from a fairly expensive East Coast city, and here I can rent a 3-bedroom house with a yard for the same price that I rent a 1-bedroom apartment in the city I came from.
I think that's a big plus when you're a new resident, is you can actually start saving up money.
There's great family things here, so if you're building your family or already have a family as you come in as a resident, lots of great things to do with kids.
There's so many things to do in Cincinnati having kids. The zoo is super fun.
We just had a brand new baby hippo. I'm actually off tomorrow, so I'm going to the zoo.
Kings Island's super fun, which is an amusement park up north. There's just tons and tons and tons of stuff to do.
It was just a great place for my family. So looking at schools and things like that for my children, that was an easy decision. We had a lot of different options for us.
One of the big reasons that I stayed in Cincinnati, I went to med school here, is because of Cincinnati itself.
I think I was most worried about balancing life and work, and the convenience of the city makes balancing life a lot easier than I expected it would be.
Cincinnati always has something to do on the weekends. There's always festivals going on. If you check out the Instagram account at Everything Cincinnati, they have something listed every weekend.
There's always lots of cultural festivals, Oktoberfest, Ghetto Fest, things like that. Part of the Midwest atmosphere, but there's something going on, it seems like every weekend.
On weekends, there's a lot of markets, Findlay Market, a lot of farmers markets all over.
So many cool pockets of just really cool stuff to do, like OTR is cool, and then Oakley's cool, and Hyde Park and Eden Park, and all these cool places that you can go and explore. there's so much to do here, so much to do, and it's really been really cool.
For me, it's of course challenging to be accepted as a part of the new country, new place, but at the same time I never felt as an alien here.
I got a little certificate saying, oh, you came to your first Reds game, and that was really cool. And you just kind of see that hospitality permeate throughout the entire city.
We really have enjoyed living in Cincinnati because it's a city that has so much from so many different places and has its own identity, while being at the same time a mix of things from all over the country and around the world.
You get to meet people from a lot of different walks of life come through here, and a lot of people from both kind of urban and rural areas, and so it's a nice mix of cultures that come through.
So I think that's one of the perks of moving to Cincinnati is you get to discover, not only do you get to learn medicine, you get to learn about a whole new area that you might never have otherwise experienced.
I'm not from Cincinnati, so it kind of surprised me that so many of these things were here. I feel like Cincinnati is a city that you never realize how cool it is until you actually come.
We have really fallen in love with Cincinnati and weren't expecting that.
It's a lot cooler than I was expecting.
I love living in Cincinnati.
Spending the past about 5 years for me in Cincinnati has been really awesome.
Cincinnati has been a blast. I'm a big fan.
Cincinnati is a sweet river city.
It is an incredibly underrated city. And I say this as somebody who does not have hometown pride. This is not my hometown. But it has won me over. And in residency, you don't have an excessive amount of free time and you don't have an excessive amount of money. But Cincinnati is so accessible and affordable and has all the things you would want in a city that it's a great place to be a resident.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed living here.